Thank you. Gomor, I'm very happy to be with you today in Copenhagen, where I just literally landed, and apologize for being late. I mean, I don't break the stereotype of the typical Italian, let's put it this way. I have to say that I'm positively surprised to see the room pretty packed and so many of you here, given that I was quite negatively surprised to understand that just yesterday that two prominent media outlets in this country suddenly decided to cancel our long scheduled interview without any explanation and just our side of my visit. So I do think that, like in other countries, including my own, the Danish media ecosystem is not immune to pressure. But I guess I was wrong, and at least there are exceptions. So thank you very much for being here. Velkommen til alle sammen. Look, I have a dense program ahead this coming few days to talk about the human rights situation in the occupied Palestinian territory. Here at the request and invitation of a coalition of Danish civil society actors and grassroots organizations who have worked hard for months to prepare this visit. We are at a very interesting and dangerous crossroad. I think everyone senses it. After 50 months, the ceasefire in Gaza and the hostage mutual release, there are also prisoners, but also on the Palestinian side there are many hostages. These offer a ray of hope, there is no question. However, the situation on the ground remains catastrophic despite all this. But let me start by putting the occupied Palestinian territory and my legal assessment in your mind. Last year, I concluded, after 6 months first and then 12 months of investigation altogether, that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Israel had committed acts of genocide in Gaza. I also said last year that Israel used what I called humanitarian camouflage, used to justify its operations in Gaza by using international humanitarian law jargon like human shields, collateral damage, safe zones, and evacuation orders in order to justify and to normalize the assault, the reckless assault on civilian life. And this has been used to camouflage acts of genocide. And in my second report, I argued that I had continued to document the attacks in Gaza, but also that the violence that we had seen in Gaza was leaking out across the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory. And this was part and parcel of a process of colonial erasure. The arguments that Israel wants to eradicate Hamas, whatever it means, or liberate the hostages, were not the main drive behind the wholesome destruction that Israel has unleashed against Gaza. As I warned on the 12th of October 2023, Israel would have tried to seize the opportunity to get more land and forcibly displace the Palestinian people. My words were prophetic, in an attempt to reproduce what some politicians called a second Nakba. And in the process, it has committed acts of genocide under the fog of war. Israeli public officials have openly advocated for a total erasure of Gaza and for mass displacement, forced displacement of Palestinians, as it had happened in 1947-49 and in 1967. All this to realize a state of Israel for Jews only from the river to the sea. This continues as we speak, because the genocide of the Palestinians is still ongoing. Just as it did not begin in 2023, we know that genocides are processes, not acts, not single acts. Genocide is a different crime than war crimes and crimes against humanity. We cannot look for the intent with the magnifier. We need to take a step back and see the intent, the intention to destroy a group as such, a people as such. And the past 15 months have led to the destruction, you know that already. I mean, I'm sure that I don't need to go through the list of data, the 70% of homes destroyed, no more universities, no more schools, few hospitals still standing and still decimated, unable to function. There is no possibility to resume normal life in Gaza. And plus, the people who now move across the rubbles looking for the remains of their beloved ones, trying to give the dignified burial to them, or they are genocide survivors. They have survived 15 months of relentless bombing and killing, including through sniper fires. There is documentation of children who have been shot in the torso and in the head. And they have been living in tents without any access to water, any dignified access to water, shelter, food. And this is, I mean, these people need to be helped. This is what we should really absorb, that this is a population of genocide survivors and they need to be rescued before thinking of who's going to rebuild Gaza. Of course, Gaza is going to be rebuilt and will be rebuilt, but no one has the right to say how Gaza will be rebuilt other than the Palestinians. This is something that we need to absorb. And let me go fast forward. I'm shocked to see how little the international community, including countries in Europe, have registered the seismic paradigm shift that has been prompted by the ICJ, the International Court of Justice advisory opinion last year. The fact that it's an advisory opinion doesn't mean that it's not binding. It's binding because it's premised upon non-derogable norms of international law. This advisory opinion has concluded that the Israeli presence, not just the military presence, Israeli presence, both army and settlements, is unlawful. It is to be seized unconditionally and as soon as possible and totally. So Israel needs to remove whatever material, immaterial, tangible, intangible, civilian and military it has established in the occupied Palestinian territory. Full stop. And there is also a deadline for it to happen, the 13th of September this year. This is what the General Assembly has given as a time frame for Israel to comply. And you know why? Because the occupation crushes the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people. We Western people do not understand what self-determination is because we enjoy it, because we have it. Self-determination is the right to exist free as a people, to determine oneself as a people, politically, economically, culturally. This is something that the Palestinians cannot do under Israeli rule, including in the little that remains of their land. Gaza Strip, West Bank, and East Jerusalem. And let me remind everyone, this is the land that international consensus, I would say at least 192 states, minus Israel, things might change right now, but it might become 191. It's still okay. It's still international consensus. Recognize the right of exclusive rights of self-determination as stated to the Palestinians, which doesn't mean the Jewish people cannot live in the occupied Palestinian territory. If they want to live there, first of all, it will not be on stolen Palestinian land, and they will not be Israeli citizens. They will be under Palestinian law, as simple as that. Meanwhile, Israel needs to withdraw. And look, in the face of all these, and this will be my last comment, I'm also shocked by the defiance toward international law, not just of Israel, but most countries in the international community, particularly the West, which has been preaching about compliance with international law with each and every country in the global south for the past decades. The ICC has issued arrest warrants on 2 Israeli leaders, 3 Palestinian leaders as well, and there be Hamas leaders as well, but they've been killed already. So there are 2 people who, and there should be more in my view, who are wanted by the International Criminal Court. And a number of countries have run forward in order to ensure that these people will be sheltered from accountability, so have fully embraced impunity. The International Court of Justice has concluded already in January last year that there was a plausible risk for the rights of the Palestinians in Gaza protected under the Genocide Convention, meaning it has recognized the plausibility of genocide and it has issued not once, twice, 3 times provisional measures that have not been complied with, of course by Israel, but not just by Israel, because all member states, including Denmark, have clear responsibility toward international law. They should suspend all ties, especially economic and military ties with Israel. So the question you should ask your governments, if you have not done it yet, is what are you doing to comply with the ICJ advisory opinion, with the ICC arrest warrants, including by securing that there are all domestic mechanisms in place to investigate and prosecute anyone who might have committed crimes in the occupied Palestinian territory. It's regrettable that, in fact, the government in this country is moving, but in the opposite direction, because I understand that it intends to pass a law to make investigation and prosecution of the crimes committed in Palestine, and trust me, it will be applied elsewhere, more difficult. So guys, as someone who deeply believes in human rights and justice, I firmly stand against this lawlessness and encourage the government of Denmark to comply with its obligations, to stop doing anything that translates into aiding and assisting Israel's unlawful occupation, apartheid regime, and recently an ongoing genocide. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's open up for questions. I would take questions in the room first and then online. Please use the mic as you pose your questions. If I could ask you to state your name and the media outlet you're with. Yeah, so starting over here in the front row.